Hey guys, and welcome back to season 2 of Above the Tree Line, where we answer your questions about faith, Christianity, and culture. Today, we have a very relevant topic with an amazing guest, and I think you guys are going to love her as much as I do, and that is the lovely Abby Balejo, newly married.
Oh, yes.
On our ACF Kids ministry team here.
Yep.
And Abby, how old are you now?
I'm 23.
You're 23. Okay.
Yes.
So the reason that I wanted to have you on is because I know both of your parents. I know your stepmom. I know your whole family.
Yeah.
And I've known them for well over a decade now. And I have watched you grow up from a little girl to a young lady. And it's interesting and relevant because you did grow up in a divorced home.
Yes.
A very Christian home
Yes.
at the same time, but also a divorced home. And with divorce rates right now going anywhere between 40 and 50%, we can assume that almost half of kids and students are growing up in a divorced home or will experience a divorced set of parents at some point in time in their life.
Yeah.
So I thank you for coming and talking to me about this. How old were you when your parents separated?
My parents, I was 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in second grade. It was the beginning of my second grade year when they told my brother and I that they were going to separate and get divorced. Yeah.
And your brother was younger.
Yes. He was 5. So not even in kindergarten. Like he was pre-K age. Okay. So yeah.
So as a kid, I mean, knowing your parents, I have to assume that this information was delivered very delicately and lovingly. But really, that's news that there's not really any great way it can be received. Like, how did that affect you as a child?
Yeah, it was hard for sure. In talking about my story with people, I've told them it was tough for me because my parents really, I think they did this from a heart of love towards my brother and I, but they didn't fight in front of us at all. And so when they told us that they were going to get divorced, I was shocked. It was really to me, it came out of left field.
Really?
Just because we didn't ever see them disagree. We didn't ever really see them fight with each other. And so I was like, how could this be? How could this happen? And they did. It was I remember it very vividly, even it being so many years ago. It was a very dramatic day. Lots of things just transpired. There was a lot of emotions, a lot of fears, a lot of worries that arose from that. But it was hard. It was tough for sure.
So in the array of emotions you felt, you just mentioned fear. I'm sure at some point there was anger, sadness. Did you ever have hope? Like they're like, please try to make it work, get back together.
I think I wanted that. Like deep down, I wanted that. I think at the time I was so confused. Like I just did not know what was happening because I had had several conversations with my parents. I think that was always a fear of mine of like, I don't want my parents to get divorced. And I had a conversation with one of my parents and they had told me like, we're never going to get divorced. We're not doing that. And so for that to happen, it was like, what in the world? What is going on? What's happening? And so I think I was so caught up in the just high emotions, everything's changing all at once, that I didn't really think until probably months after, like maybe they'll get back together, maybe it'll work out, maybe something will happen. And I think that's every kid's hope in that moment is, I mean, nobody wants that. So
was your family in the church at this point in time?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the other thing I wanted to point out. It's like, there's not a huge difference between the divorce rate between Christians and non-Christians. It's something that's kind of affecting just people across the boards, almost regardless of religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's this somewhat of an expectation in like certain churches. It's like, oh, well, the Christian marriages are going to stay together, but we're not seeing that now. Okay, so talk about your experience as you were in second grade then. You're growing up, you're going through your teen years, your parents are living separately. how, like, did you ever have any like resentment about having to like go back and forth between the two of them? Like, how did that affect you? I've got a teenager now, and I'm like, I feel like if I threw this like divorce into his life, it would just.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. I think that's one of the main things that was a challenge going through middle school, high school. I definitely did have resentment, but towards my parents, towards the situation, I honestly was angry. I blamed a lot on them and just my whole family. I was really frustrated just because the going back and forth is super hard. And I've described it to people and they know this. Like, I've described it as, it feels at times like you're a pawn in a game, and it's just, you're just going where you're told to go. Like, it didn't feel like there was a lot of freedom. It didn't feel like there was a lot of, obviously my parents wanted the best for me. Right. They wanted what they could for us, but just with the situation, it was sort of, they couldn't do anything about it. And so, I mean, obviously when your parents living separate, they want to see you want me and my brother both, they want to see us, and it's inevitably going to turn out to look like that, where, I was like, oh, I'm at my dad's this weekend, I can't do that thing, or
like
I'm with my mom,
two
Christmases, two birthdays, which at times was great,
Yeah,
loved it, but at the same time, I also didn't feel like a normal person. I was like, my family situation's not normal. It's not, conventional to what, the happy American family looks like.
Did you have an insecurity about that with your other friends?
I definitely did, especially when it first happened. At the time that my parents got divorced, we lived in the Midwest. We lived up in Indiana. And before they got divorced, or when they got divorced is when we came and moved down to Texas. But specifically in the community that we were living in the time, it was 2009, I think it was. That was like, divorce was not a thing. Like, it was a thing, but it was not as normal, I feel like, as it is now.
Yeah.
And so I was one of like maybe all of the kids in my grade that had divorced parents. And so when having to explain that to people of like, my parents aren't going to be married anymore.
Right.
They're not together anymore. My mom's moving to Texas. Like, I'm not going to live with one of them all the time. Like, that situation was really hard to explain, and it was really complicated. And so I did not love it. It was not great.
So I'm just thinking about, like, in my daughter's in elementary school, in her classroom, you can tell by like the contact list for the class that a lot of the moms and dads don't have the same last names. So there's many divorced families just within like this one classroom. Do you think that would have made it any easier for you if more, I mean, I don't know, not probably easier, but would it have normalized it?
I think if that had been the case for me, I think that I may have felt, especially at the beginning of it, felt less alone.
Like you had community.
Like I had community. Yeah. I had other kids that like understood what I was going through. Because I think in moments, I mean, I didn't have, even as I'm like thinking off the top of my head, most of my friends through middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, their parents were all married. I didn't know, I wasn't close with people I knew people who had divorced parents, but I wasn't close with those people. And so even then, I feel like if there had been more people in my circle at that time, I think I would have been like, oh, yeah, okay, you get it. Yeah. You get me. Like, I'm not crazy for feeling the feelings that I have,
So you're raised in the church. You're taught that marriage is a man and a woman. It's a covenant between them and God. How did this divorce, did it affect your relationship with God at all, or your view of Christianity?
It's really ironic. I don't think it is, actually. It's not a coincidence. But I actually received Christ right after my parents got divorced.
Okay.
So my parents got divorced in the fall of 2009, and I was baptized in December of 2009.
Wow.
So
it's almost like responding to the pain, like crying out, like, God, I need you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and I was young, but I knew I knew that I loved Jesus and I knew that I wanted to follow him for the rest of my life at that point. And so I decided to make that decision. I think even now I still struggle with like this whole, especially as I'm diving deeper into my faith and like reading the word more and knowing what the Bible says about divorce.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Like I still sit here and I'm like, I have so many questions about why, like what does this say about my family? Like, what does God think about this situation in my family? Like, there has been so much fruit that's come from my life, come from my brother's life. Like, you know, my parents are both remarried now. Like, the fruit that's coming from both of those sides of the family. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what's going on? God, what?
Yeah, like God has redeemed a situation that started off very broken. And I know your dad is very active in ministry.
Yeah.
And in some Christian circles, like divorce to a certain degree almost like disqualifies you from certain roles.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's something that it probably varies like church to church.
For sure.
But, and I feel like it was more like old school, like an old school way of feeling. But I just can't imagine how painful that would be for the person basically who loves Jesus. It's like, well, you're disqualified because of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, it just hurts my heart. So how did going through this as a child and walking through it, you recently got married. What is it, 6 months?
Yes, right. We're a little over 6 months now.
A little over 6 months married. Did growing up this way, did it invoke like any fear in you regarding marriage?
Definitely. I think that was probably one of the biggest things for me going into relationships and ultimately my relationship with my husband was I was like, this is off the table. We're not doing divorce. Like I'm not getting divorced because I know what I walked through. I know mostly from the child's perspective, I know, and I also now being an adult, having talked to both my parents, knowing the pain that they walked through, and then what I know about my personal pain that I walked through as a child and my brother, I didn't want to put my child, my future children through that. I also was like, I'm not going to walk through that myself. That's not something I want. And so, but knowing my parents, I was like, they didn't walk into marriage looking for divorce either.
No,
and
they
so
did not.
it's one of those things that I think still
Nobody
swirls
wants
around.
it.
Right. But
I mean, not initially anyway.
definitely, for sure. No one's like, oh, I'm going to sign up to get married to get divorced.
Because I have a number of very devoted Christians who are like, they have so much agony, not only over their divorce, but because in a way they're like, I failed God.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shame in that. It was like, the Bible said to do this and I couldn't make it work.
Yeah.
And then it raises the question with a lot of, my friends are primarily women, but a lot of them are like, at what point is it okay to step out of the marriage?
Yeah.
Like, do you need to stay in this forever and maybe be miserable? Or is it okay to cut and go?
Yeah, definitely. And that is a valid question because I also think about that. I mean, not for my personal situation, but just for others around me. I'm like, what is and it is hard too, because I feel like in culture today, because divorce is so prevalent, like it happens all the time. In some ways I've seen it, this is just my personal opinion, but has seen divorce as romanticized in ways in social media culture and just everywhere. And so it is like, okay, what is the line of like, this is not okay for my family anymore. This is, and then also knowing what the Bible says about it. It's a tension for sure. And I honestly don't have an opinion or an answer for that.
Yeah. Well, that's what like with one of my girlfriends, I was like, they have children together. So I'm like, your day-to-day life is probably going to feel a lot easier because you're not going to have this negative kind of oppressive presence around you.
Yeah.
However, you are going to be co-parenting these children until the youngest is 18.
Yeah.
You will be tied together.
Right.
And there's part of me that's like, it's hard to make decisions when you're in the same house, but when you're in two different houses, you really lose a lot of control over how the parenting is happening at the other house.
For sure.
Did you ever feel any not like whiplash, but you're like, oh, there's different rules, different things I can get away with at different houses?
Yeah, I think Well, I'm a rule follower. My brother probably has a different
Yeah,
opinion
same.
because he's completely different than me. But I, for sure, there's definitely a difference just because you're being raised in two different households. And I also have an added element to the fact that my stepdad is also divorced before, he's divorced before he married my mom. And so he has two boys. And so me,
you blended family.
yes. So it's me, my brother Peyton, and then my two youngest my stepbrothers. And so we're like double doing it, you know? And so it's like, okay, the rules that have to be united completely for all me and my three other siblings on this side. On the other side, there was just me and Peyton. And so it is completely different.
I didn't even think about. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah.
So the blended family thing. Were you? When did you meet your stepbrothers?
My stepbrothers, so we've basically grown up together. After my
Okay.
parents got divorced, my mom got married pretty quickly after. They knew each other prior. It was a whole thing. But they got married within the next year after my parents got divorced. And so I met my stepbrothers I was 8, I think, was
Okay.
when I met them.
Was there
Yeah.
any resistance to accepting them as part of your new family?
Not at that point.
Okay.
I was like, okay, yeah, I have 2 more brothers. This is really cool. I didn't know how it was going to be, but I was like, okay, now I have this whole nother family, like extended family and everything, cousins and
Yeah.
an additional pair of grandparents. I was like, okay, this is hard, but also kind of cool. It's a blessing. You know, I saw it that way at least. So it was definitely an adjustment, but it wasn't like I didn't have negativity towards them at all.
Let's talk about the dynamic of the step parent
Yeah.
for a moment. I mean, like, you know, the wicked stepmother from Cinderella. Like, there's a lot of, I think there's been some difficult relationships between step parents and their stepchildren.
Yeah.
And a lot of it maybe stems from because the child doesn't want to accept that other person as their new parent. Did you experience any of this like hesitation to step into a relationship with your step parents?
I don't recall having hesitation stepping into a relationship with my step-parents. I definitely come from the frame of mind of like, I love my mom and I love my dad so much. And so I was on board with like, okay, if they love this person, like I'll be on board with it, you know? And so it definitely was difficult juggling the whole, like, you're not my dad, you're not my mom, like that whole
Like,
relationship.
do they still have authority?
Right. And like I said, me and my brother might be different in this way just because I'm the oldest child. So I do have a lot of those like oldest child tendencies. I follow the rules. I listen to authority. I don't like to get in trouble. So in that regard, I did my very best to respect the authority of my step-parents, my stepmom and my stepdad. But I did want to have a close relationship with both of them. And that was my goal, but also while respecting the roles that my mom and my dad played in my life and not trying to replace them, quote unquote. You know? So, yeah.
So just minor trail here.
Yeah.
The only divorce in my family that I've walked through was when I was in elementary school. My grandparents got divorced, which was so bizarre because I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't even think y'all even cared about this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you're in the grandparent world.
Right.
And even that, how we had to navigate graduations, family Christmases, like weddings.
Yeah.
You sit over here. Where's this one going to sit?
Right.
Like it was so, but I felt like there was some animosity in that. And so it sounds like your parents have done a really good job trying to keep that animosity either not part of the equation or not part of the equation that the kids were aware of.
Yeah, I think there were definitely times, if we're all being honest, like there were times growing up that things got tense. Like there were things that were difficult, for sure. And I think that's part of like what's grown me up and also helped me to be able to speak into other people's lives in terms of relationships with co-parents and the ex or the other parent or the child, is that it's not abnormal. And I will say, like, my experience also in some shape or fashion reflected that as well. Just because, it's not an easy situation.
No.
It's not, I mean, what you said earlier about you have to, when you're thinking about divorce, you get rid, quote unquote, of this person out of your home, but then you are especially if
Yep.
you have kids, you're co-parenting, and we've seen that. My brother's 21, gonna be 21 in September, and I mean, we're still like, I just got married, so that's still like a joint family thing that my parents are having to work together on, or
Right.
like I'm the middleman, whatever, communicating between the two of them, and
Right.
so it never really goes away, because
Yeah.
then, you know, maybe your kids get married and then they have children, and then
Right.
you have shared grandchildren, and then
Yes.
it's like, you know, trying to
Yes.
figure that out.
Absolutely.
So
it's a lifelong,
situation.
yeah.
Yes.
Once you get married, there's a lifelong
For sure.
relationship. Okay,
Definitely.
so this is one of the questions I ask people. Like, where did you find God in this less than ideal circumstance?
honestly, he was in the small moments when it felt like everything was falling apart. I just have this vivid memory of when I was a teenager, and my parents had been arguing over some custody thing. I don't know what it was, like the court order or something, like when they were going to see when the kids were coming where, and all the things. And I was just done. I was tired of it. I was like, I'm tired of being told where to go. I know I'm a kid. Like, my parents still have authority over me, but I was like, I'm tired of being told where to go in a way that probably other kids don't have to deal with. I'm tired of not having a say in what's happening. I'm tired of, you know, all these things. I was just exhausted with the fighting. I was exhausted with everything. And I remember just like going into my bathroom and like just like crouching in a little ball, and I was just crying in my bathroom. And you know, in my, I don't know, maybe dramatic 14-year-old fashion, but it was real hurt to me then. And just being like, God, why? Like, why is this happening? Why can't they just work together? Why can't we just be a peaceful family,
quote,
you know,
unquote, normal family. Yeah.
you know, whatever that looks like at this point. And honestly, it was just in those little moments that I was like, I knew God, especially looking back now, like I knew God was there with me in those little moments. I knew that he was covering me, because knowing where I've come now and being able to look back on that, his presence was completely covering me. And the peace that came from it was just, you know, far beyond my understanding. And I knew that even though it felt so isolating in the moment, like there were definitely moments that I felt like the Lord's presence there, and him coming up next to me and being like, you're not alone. I'm here with you. I constantly, in that period of my life, I constantly had little flashbacks of like God being like, hey, remember that day when your mom and dad came down crying and told you that they were separating? Like, I was in the living room with you. I was sitting on the couch with you. I was there with you. And so just those reminders from the Lord of like, I'm never leaving you.
Right.
I'm with you. You're never alone. I'm fighting for you. Just those little things. I just knew like he was there.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but I want to ask you two questions in closing. One, what do you say to kids, students whose parents either are going through a divorce or have divorced? What do you say to them?
I would say you're not alone, even though it feels like it. You're not. And if I'm the one person that says like, you're not alone, then like, come find me, wherever that is, like, come find me. Like, I relate so heavily to this situation. Obviously, I've walked through it myself. But I would also say, don't be afraid of the feelings you're feeling, because I think constantly throughout my life in this situation, I was like, this is dumb. Why am I feeling this? This is silly. I shouldn't be feeling like that. But it's all valid and it's all real things that is hard. And so I would say, don't shy away from feeling your feelings. Don't shove it down, because I did that for a while and I had to, you know, go to counseling and pull it right back up again and work it out. But yeah, feel it all. You know, you're not alone in it. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, second part of this is, now that you are a married woman, what do you say to the couple who is contemplating divorce?
Specifically, if you have children, I would say things that a lot of people probably don't know or wouldn't say is that the kids understand more than you think. That was my thing. my brother and I understood and saw more than I think my parents thought we did. And so just keeping that in mind as you're walking through this situation. But I would also say, it's not my place to say, but work as hard as you can. Work as hard as you can, specifically for your children, because it's a hard situation and they didn't choose it. And so it's one of those things that might be hard to hear, but we didn't choose this. And it has deeply affected our lives in a lot of great ways and a lot of hard ways also. And so I would say just continue to think about your kids, because what you may think is best for them may not be what's best for them. And so, that's hard, but it's the truth.
I would almost add on to that, just to something that I would say to my dear friends who are walking through divorce, is that that you're not a mistake.
Yeah,
You're not broken.
definitely.
Like you said, you're not alone, and you haven't failed.
Right.
Because the relationship didn't work out, you're not a failure.
Yeah.
I know so many of these moms feel so guilty that it didn't work. But I'm like, God also brings beauty from ashes.
Yes.
He can redeem every situation.
He can, for
and
sure.
We've seen that happen
Definitely.
time and time again.
I've definitely seen it in my family. So absolutely. Yeah.
Well, okay, we have gone a little bit over, but it's so relevant.
Yeah.
40 to 50% of all marriages. So chances are 40 to 50% of the people who are watching this either have gone through a divorce or, the kids are living in a divorced home. So guys, I just want to thank you. A lot of questions have come in about divorce, about remarriage, and mainly I just wanted to get the perspective of somebody who's grown up with it being a reality and is now an adult and can reflect back on it. So thank you for sending us your questions about marriage. If you have any other comments for us, please send them in at www.acfellowship.org/podcast, or you can just go to the website and hit podcast. And it's an anonymous form, but if there's anything that you want to send to Abby or myself, feel free to leave your contact information. Well, thank you, Abby, so much for joining us and being so vulnerable. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on an episode next week.